Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to enter the debate and address the House and the national community on a few of the pertinent issues arising in the budget statement and some related issues in the public space at this time. Madam Speaker, I want to begin by congratulating the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Siparia, on a most comprehensive, detailed, policy-oriented response to the budget 2024. The Member of Parliament for Siparia is at this very moment attending the send-off in a very troubled area in Princestown. And once again, on behalf of members on this side, I want to extend condolences and our very deepest sympathy to the family, friends, relatives of Jaden Lalchan in circumstances that are so horrible. The opposition leader is where she should be, extending sympathy, compassion, hope, solidarity with troubled families in Trinidad and Tobago. I congratulate all my colleagues on this side of the House for their sterling contribution in the debate thus far, and we look forward to some powerhouse presentations to come on this side, I'm sure. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance, as we all know, delivered his 10th budget presentation last Monday. He kept the worst for last. The minister uttered 34,975 words. Madam Speaker, that is a fact that we checked using Wi-Fi that member for Laventille East Mova reminded us about. Madam Speaker, I just want to put in context that Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, the distinguished Minister of Finance of the Republic of India, in July 2024, she was budgeting for a quarter of the world's population. She spoke for 1 hour and 25 minutes. She only had the budget for a quarter of the planet. Now, had this Minister of Finance had the budget for India, he would still be speaking. Now, for 5 hours and 12 minutes after, while, Madam Speaker, the national concern was, when will it end? How much pages left? And so, Madam Speaker, he added injury to insult by continuing, Madam Speaker, if this ever happen again, and it cannot, this member should supply this House and its members with painkillers, eye drops, and other related pharmaceuticals to assist during that exercise. Madam Speaker, I want to bring anybody into this debate, but I took a look around the House that day, and I think many of us were moved to some level of exhaustion. Madam Speaker, so with this worthy budget, the minister took us around the world. He told us about the drought in Panama. And instead of blaming, and I say, the member for Siparia, Kamla, instead of blaming the member for Siparia, he blamed the
right thing. So let's do the right thing because it's the right thing. So take out that word and you continue with all the respect to the rules.
Let's proceed. The member for Siparia, instead of blaming the member for Siparia, withdraw.
Yes, yes. No, I didn't understand that.
Oh, fine. I withdraw that word.
Sure.
And instead of blaming the member for Siparia on this occasion, he blamed Panama, a drought. Then he took us to Argentina, where we did not know it was that bad. Then took us to Copenhagen. Then took us to Germany. Then came back to London. Ended up in the Red Sea. And I think if we continue, there is the Barents Sea by then. But he took us all around the world, but without any focus, without any purpose, and just continued forever. And I think that, Madam Speaker, was a disservice to this country, the presentation, and in future, a future government ought to look at that. Madam Speaker, And at the heart of this matter, the minister came with rehashed plans and programs that we have heard so many times. Whether it is the dry dock in Labre, it is the Toko Highway, it is what again? The Maruga Highway. Whatever it is, every year, the same plan, the same program, and they have a crisis of implementation. It is a crisis of implementation that we face, Madam Speaker. And then they beat their chest on their performance, and we didn't know what was happening because the member for Diego Martin West was offering Karaili, and the member for Diego Martin Northeast was offering sweet bread. One was sour and one was sweet. So you don't know what is the picture, the true. And I asked, would the real member for Diego Martin Northeast come forward? Because on one occasion, he told a court in an affidavit, in the TRA matter, that it was gloomy the next 2-3 years, bad, things were collapsing, no revenue. And then he came last week, Monday, and said, things are looking up good. And the Prime Minister is on record, dark days ahead until 2027, I believe it is. So the Prime Minister would like the population to purchase a lotto ticket and indicate that that lotto will draw in 2027. Hold on. You could succeed, but in 2027. That is where we are with this contradiction that comes from the highest level of the government. And they were caught out by the leader of the opposition, who raised the issue of the $50 million entertainment budget for the office of the Prime Minister, another $400 million that they cannot explain. The Prime Minister for FET, $50 million gallivanting. $400 million. The Prime Minister was on a platform last week, Friday, I believe. It was a wake somewhere in Belmont, was it? Yes. A wake somewhere.
Move from the corner to the community.
And he said, yeah, he had to go to the community center. Nobody will come out at the corner. And Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister was there, and I did not listen, I must confess. You know, I wasn't doing anything, but I didn't listen. And I had to ask someone who was paid to listen for me and give some notes. I have a sense of what was said. Nobody will listen to him free. So, Madam Speaker, we did get a report on that. And it's fascinating, the issues that the Prime Minister is related to the budget. Trying to explain the $400 as payments to UDCOT, and I will come to that in a few minutes, when the opposition leader exposed him as late as yesterday that those figures are already in the budget and the Ministry of Health is paying UDCOT for the hospitals, so it cannot be in the office of the Prime Minister. We await the next excerpt on that matter. I want to remind the government, before I really get into the meat of my presentation here, that this is a minority government. This is an opposition in waiting. They were booted out in Tobago, and they got the less votes than the UNC in the local government election. They are the minority and the opposition in waiting. Madam Speaker, they came, they saw, and they destroyed. We got cry, untruths, and mamagai. Those last 10 years, Madam Speaker, the last 9 years or so, constitute and will constitute lost years of development. Today, Madam Speaker, I can tell you that in this country we have too much grief and debt in Trinidad and Tobago. There's an overbearing hopelessness in this society. Children are being slaughtered. The social fabric of this nation is decaying. We have bullies in the schools. The member for Princestown alluded to bullies in the parliament, Madam Speaker. We have criminals roaming the streets, mass murderers on the prowl, because the detection rate in the police is so low. I believe it is now about 15% detection rate for murder. It could be less for other serious crimes, Madam Speaker. The detection rate is abominable. Madam Speaker, the family structure has broken down due in part to poverty, joblessness, hopelessness, economic contraction. Madam Speaker, a good slogan for the member for Diego Martin North East is, honey, I shrunk the economy. I shrunk the economy. This economy is 20% smaller than it was when we left office in 2015, honey, I shrunk the economy. That is their motto. And I'll come to the energy sector for a few comments in a few minutes. Madam Speaker, everything is correlated. And the wider failure stems from an evil that lurks in the highest quarters of this land. This, Madam Speaker, day by day, this society is norming the tragic news, as we had within the last hour or so, of a double killing, I believe, in South Trinidad, Barrapo. Madam Speaker, this is the context that we come to the population with today. Madam Speaker, in the budget debate, I took note of something which I'll also raise now. The Point Fortin Hospital, a project of the People's Partnership Administration, and we are proud. When they came in 2015, Madam Speaker, they had an approach, and we know the approach. They stopped all major large-scale projects of the partnership, and they said they have to review. They are reviewing. You know what they did as well? They went to contractors, large-scale contractors, and said reduce the cost. Anything the partnership was paying, come in with less. And if you come in with less, we can go publicly and say, look, they were building a house for, I don't know, 600,000. We are billing it for 400,000. They were building a highway for X billion. Now we are billing it for X billion minus something. They were building something else, a community center. They were building this, so we want to come in with less. So they carried a narrative that the partnership was doing everything. So we had budgeted, I believe it was $187 million to complete the Brian Lara. They said, no, we did that with 90 million. You know, they have to refurbish and do over Brian Lara about 3 times. That will come in for more than 180. Because now I believe, as the member for Caroni Central, a brilliant contribution here, reminded us, I think they are fogging up the media center, to use the term. I got it right. Madam Speaker, so all the projects, I was appalled when I heard the minister announce that the Point Fortin Hospital came in at 1.3 billion. Madam Speaker, I took note and I went back to my documents, some of the documents, public documents, which I kept from the ministerial office, public documents. And Madam Speaker, do you know the initial budget of that hospital under the partnership was $810 million. $810 million. They came in at $1.3 billion. Whoa. That is $500 million more than budgeted. And that is one project. And Madam Speaker, I have in my hand a document which I will come to in a little while.
In a red folder?
In a red folder, believe it or not. On another large-scale project. But before I get there, I don't want to get there too early, Madam Speaker. I want to speak about these projects. They went to the Currap interchange, and one of their members was boasting that they did it for less money. They removed roads that today you still have a bottleneck traffic. Madam Speaker, not even Waze can help you to navigate that interchange.
Waze get confused. True.
They confuse Waze. They confuse Google. You have to go 2 miles to come back up the road, Madam Speaker. But they had a narrative that you have to come in less than the partnership. So they can go to the population and say, look at that. They were billing for $10 and we now billing for $6. So where the $4 were going? So they carried about that and so on, and they got away with it for a while. We bought vessels, Coast Guard vessels. Madam Speaker, I think 6 Daman vessels. Madam Speaker, those vessels went to Suriname to dry dock. They came back to Port of Spain, Chaguaramas, and they're still not functioning. This country has 2 ministers of national security and 1 vessel operational. 1 vessel is today operational and 2 ministers of national security. Yeah. Madam Speaker, the Coast Guard is no longer a Coast Guard, it's just a guard, because they don't guard the coast. So it's just a guard, Madam Speaker. It happened under them. They have a lot of firsts that they could take a curious credit for. It's a curious credit. Never in the country history has this country been without at least one operational vessel, and it was like this a few months ago. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance, correct me if I'm wrong, but he can't, dip his hand in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, not once, not twice, but 10 times. Wow. How much money? 16 billion, I think. 10 times? He's saying it's more than 10. Madam Speaker, I'm happy that he's responding and awake. Madam Speaker, in the heritage and stabilization jar, we should put a rat trap inside here with some kind of cutter. If we put that there, his both hands would be bandaged now. Both his hands would be in bandage now. If we put a cutter in that heritage and stabilization fund and we test after a few years, his hands, they will all be scarred. 10 times no Minister of Finance in this country history do that. No government would do that. And he says he is the first, but you are the first and you are the last. All the talk about revenue and economy turning around and so on, 10 times you put your hand in that jar called the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. While that was happening, Madam Speaker, crime escalated. They cannot protect you from a mosquito. They cannot protect you from a snail. And they cannot protect you from the criminal elements. And I tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago, it will get worse. Yes. This is not the worst. It will get worse. Before they demit office, Madam Speaker, which will be soon. Madam Speaker, I come to a matter that has been in the public domain, this refinery sale. I want to congratulate the Member of Parliament for Pointe-à-Pierre, yes. The very distinguished member for Pointe-à-Pierre, on that dragon-like presentation last week that exposed and ripped apart the presentation of the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. Mm-hmm. And you know, I had cause to reflect as well on the presentation of the Minister of Energy. On Friday last, I think he also was at the wake. And Madam Speaker, it was interesting, they didn't call the Minister of Finance to speak on the budget in a political meeting at the height of the budget. They called the Minister of Energy. And the Minister of Energy had this to say. He was praising the Prime Minister. And he was praising the Prime Minister. He said, they are well known throughout the world by all the executives in the oil and gas sector. In fact, they are known on a first name basis. I want to tell the member for Port-au-Spain North, St. Anne's West, this is now our first rodeo. We come here before, long time. The people who head all those oil and gas companies, they are business persons, they're interested in money. They have no friend and they have no enemy. Today, it might be Stuart and Keith. Tomorrow is Kams and Mooney. No, it was an analogy.
You're self-corrected before. Right, so, yes, please.
Today is the member for Diego Martin West and the member for Port-au-Spain North. Tomorrow is the member for Claxton Bay and the member for Siparia. You know? So, Madam Speaker, this is how business works. They are not your friends that way. They're into business. So don't feel that, you know, there's a friendship working here. And they went and they negotiate. While they negotiate, they collapse the energy sector. They collapse the energy sector. And Madam Speaker, I want to come to one issue of that sector because I think the member for Pointe-à-Pierre dealt with it so comprehensively. Only one matter is. The Minister of Energy came to the House and made what he thought was some bombshell announcement that a fake document was tendered during the process, and it was a wire transfer of some kind, and so on. And it was fake. Today, I took note of a matter today, dated 8 October, I think that's today. Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited issued a media release to say that they are in receipt of a document submitted by Patriotic Energy in furtherance of its non-binding offer to the for the Guaracara refinery. A document, 1.5 billion United States dollars. Information to hand suggests that there was no such transfer. Accordingly, the document has been referred to legal advisors for relevant advice and so on. I want to ask, how Trinidad Petroleum get hold of wire transfer documents meant to be under the purview of an independent evaluation committee chaired by one Vishnu Danpal? The other members of that committee is very instructive, Madam Speaker. The other members of that committee, for the record, and we want to thank the members of that committee as well for their service, Madam Speaker, their service to the country in this manner. Vishnu Danpal, Sandra Fraser, Dexter Jagannath, Jimmy Wong, Selwyn Lashley, Klein Laborde, Christopher Narayan Thomas, Anil Singh, and others. We thank them for their service. But I'm not seeing anywhere their Trinidad Petroleum Holding. In fact, I'm not even seeing the minister's name here as part of the evaluation committee. How did the minister got wind of a wire transfer involving an impartial and independent evaluation committee. The minister has to tell us, how did this happen? Did you enter the room of the evaluation committee? By accident, you were in Whitehall and you entered the wrong room and they were looking at documents that Patriotic submitted? How did this happen? And how did Trinidad Holdings Limited get a copy of these documents, confidential documents, meant for Scotia International and meant for the evaluation committee? How it works, Madam Speaker, is when you send your documents to the evaluation committee, if they believe that something is amiss and so on, they have a duty to take it up with the authorities. To take it with the authorities. Politicians don't get involved in that. But Madam Speaker, that is a question they will answer. But you see, it's related to another matter I'll raise now, because I'm on this matter. They have developed this tragedy of influencing, undermining, participating in matters of evaluation, in matters dealing with all types of, reviews and so on. Madam Speaker, I have in my hand a document by NIDCO. Let me take a little sip for that. Madam Speaker, it's a Freedom of Information request made. It is dated the 14th of April, 2021. And do you know, Madam Speaker, we got hold of this as part of the Freedom of Information business. Questions were asked, Madam Speaker, to NIDCO as to the process for submitting bids and tenders and proposals and interests by Ostal and or INCAT to provide passenger fast ferries to service the sea bridge between Trinidad and Tobago for the period 2018-2019. Very instructive. This has revealed that Cabinet, of course, agreed to an official visit by a delegation from Trinidad and Tobago to China and Australia, May 2018. So let's see how it goes. An official delegation went to China and Australia. They saw boat, they like boat, they buy boat.
Picture of the boat.
They saw a picture of the boat because the boat wasn't constructed yet. And they buy boat. When we asked the names and qualifications of persons on the committee established to evaluate the submitted bids or tenders and or proposals, Cabinet, June 21st, 2018, and I do receive some Cabinet notes and minutes time and time again, Madam Speaker. I think they probably still have my name and address on the list there. Madam Speaker, Cabinet appointed a committee to review proposals for the purchase of fast ferries. Madam Speaker, the tune of money we are talking about here, 140, about 140 million United States dollars multiplied by 7, almost $1 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars passing here to purchase boats, fast ferry. Do you know this evaluation committee? Well, let's get the terms right. Yes, to evaluate the submitted bids, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Communications, Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General, Legal Affairs, Chairman of an evaluation committee for $1 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars to receive bids, tenders, interests. The Honorable Major General, Minister of National Security, retired Edmund Dillon, Minister. Senator the Honorable Dennis Moses, he was then Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. This one is an interesting one. Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, Director Legal Services, Ministry of Works and Transport, as he then was. So he was involved a little way before on the compound. Mr. Stephen Gardner, Project Manager, Mr. Demi John, Businessman. Madam Speaker, this reveals that politicians with cabinet rank who are involved in policy making. Now, to be a member of parliament, I think you need to be 18 years old and not bankrupt, unless I'm mistaken. Right. Correct, yeah? So satisfying the age requirement and the bankruptcy requirement, you get to the parliament and you can get to the cabinet. Not that we have nothing more to offer. Like sanity, I guess. Madam Speaker, politicians found their way on a committee to evaluate $1 billion in bid for fast ferries. When we asked who else was on this committee, NIDCO said no, it had nobody else. We asked NIDCO Could we get the report of the committee established to evaluate the submitted bids and tenders? They said NIDCO is not in possession of any such report. NIDCO, that is purchasing, project managing, going to visit to see if the boats are, compatible and so on. They say we are not in possession of any such report on the evaluation. We're not in possession of that. We asked for the report of the committee established to negotiate with companies for the provision of passenger fast ferries. NIDCO replied, NIDCO is not in possession of any such report also. $1 billion spending. And the state enterprise that dealing with this matter don't even have the report, because we dread the thing they have and they will not disclose. So they don't have the report. Madam Speaker, this process of evaluation and so on using politicians is something they are familiar with, Madam Speaker. And that is why when they purchase, whether it's boat or plane or anything, you will have all of this scandal and bacchanal. Apart from the real issue of non-performance and having vessels and equipment that are not operational. Madam Speaker, let me get to my red file here immediately. I'm itching to get to this business here, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, we know ministers find themselves in the cabinet, they recuse themselves 98 times, 100 times. In fact, they have an interesting strategy. They recuse and then they accuse. So they recuse themselves and accuse us. It's a nice strategy. Madam Speaker, I heard the Prime Minister last week as well. He was responding on the platform to serious concerns raised in the Parliament and in the speech of the Leader of the Opposition. And the Prime Minister raised the most horrendous matter that touch and concern all citizens. That such an installation as the diplomatic center that housed a cabinet room, government offices and residence of the head of government. He said that under the center, the sewage lines and so on were blocked, and he called in WASA. And then they discovered something there. They discovered that it was a mass of female underwear. It was in the newspaper, reported so, ma'am. And that was a very serious matter, that WASA would be called in. Madam Speaker, I called WASA. I said, is there a report on this very troubling matter? The person on the line with WASA laughed in my face. He said, don't ask me nothing about politics, sir. That is where we are. That is where we are. So the Prime Minister has gone on to make these serious allegations. And I challenge the Prime Minister now. Go further and produce the WASA report that speaks to that matter. And as they say in the O.J. Simpson matter, if it don't fit, you must acquit. If it don't fit, you must acquit. Because they are making serious allegations. And the Prime Minister has this pathological obsession, Madam Speaker, with undergarments and sleep clothes of the female. A pathological, obsession, which I think Freud explained somehow, but that now is not the time for that, Madam Speaker. I think Sigmund Freud explained that well, Madam Speaker, that obsession. But if it don't fit, acquit. So I expect the member for Digomartin West to have in his hand the offending materials and to walk up and down the Brian Lara looking to see who it fit.
Member.
Yes, let's move on. Madam Speaker, on that note, all I will add and close is that over my life, I have been shopping. I travel a bit as well in malls. And I've heard of Victoria's Secrets, but I've never heard of Rowley Secrets. So that may be a new addition. I haven't seen the shop yet. Maybe that shop exists. Madam Speaker, I want to come to the highway. Point Fortin to San Fernando. Another project undertaken by the People's Partnership that we are proud of. We are proud. Madam Speaker, when they came into office, they raised all kind of concerns about the OAS and so on, about all other companies too. To this day, I want to remind members opposite, after 10 years, no police officer has gone to the door of the member for Siparia asking her any questions about her tenure as Prime Minister. She is the only Prime Minister, the member is the only Prime Minister. I say with great respect to former Prime Ministers. Every time you demit that office, there's some little troubleness and so on, troublesome business. Some have had it more than others. In fact, when you demit office as minister too, you find yourself engage in some business of investigation and so on. No integrity commission, no police has gone by the house of the member for Siparia on any matter. And when they campaign, Madam Speaker, that is their thematic about corruption. And I want to tell you, no police ever come by the house of the member for Oropouche East either. When they come by me, it's because they want water, they want printer, they want paper and ink.
Yes.
When they come by me, they want to find out your address. That's why they come by me, to find out where you live in. Madam Speaker, I have in my hand an important report. You see, I made a statement 2 years ago and showed pictures and so on elsewhere that they had mismanaged this project called the Highway to Point 14. And do you know when they came into office, they stopped that project, accused us of every wrong under the sun. But what they did, again, they told contractors, reduce the price so we can show that the partnership was doing it for an excessive cost. And look, we are here now, and we reduced the price. You know what happened, Madam Speaker? The mosquito crack happened. Near, on that road, by the Godino River, there is something called the mosquito crack. I dubbed it the mosquito crack, but I did not know I was technically correct.
Close to the creek.
I thought I was politically correct, but not technically. I have in my hand, Madam Speaker, which I will not display. I cannot trample on your goodwill, Madam Speaker. I have in my hand here the completion of the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension to Point 14 project, the January 2022 road failure at Mosquito Creek, a report on the nature, cause, remediation, and contractual implications of the failure. Madam Speaker, I asked the Minister of Works for 2 years, could you please give us the report, tell us what the report said. I got fed up of asking this Minister of Works. After a while, I think he was ducking me. Anytime he see me, he would turn around and walk away, because he expected that I would ask him for this report. But I got the report, it's in my hands. It is in my hands, look at here, Madam Speaker. A report dated November 29, 2023, in my hand. And Madam Speaker, it's a very technical report. I don't want to bore this House and the national community with typical cross-section drawing and what is that, geotechnical language and differential equations and so on. Geotechnical investigations. Madam Speaker, I want to get to the real point here. The point is, Madam Speaker, with all this drawing and data and so on, they have concluded the failure took place. It was the construction of the road where it was almost finished. A crack, almost parallel to the road alignment, developed more or less along the median of the road, the boundaries and so on. They called it a crack in their technical report, so I was right. And they measured it at 1.2 meters along the road, the main crack. So there's a main crack and a secondary crack. At the end of the failure event, some holes were observed and they expressed their methodology and so on. Madam Speaker, what was shocking to us, Madam Speaker, was that this matter arose, Madam Speaker, because they were in the business of cutting costs to show that the former administration would have handled this matter in a way that was somehow wrong, with cost escalation and so on. Madam Speaker, yes. In the summary part of the report, it says, Madam Speaker, the embankment suffered complete failure. The crack had developed a drop of 120 millimeters along the western edge. The damage was caused by a failure, a significant failure, Madam Speaker. And they point out here, Madam Speaker, that when we demitted office in 2016, 2018, there was a change in the design. They changed the design. And in changing the design, they removed the part to put drains. Wick drains is called, I think, the technical term for it. They removed that. And that caused a crack, a failure, a fissure, as they say, considerable lateral movement. It caused severe collapse of that road, the change of design, and the new design that ACOM, their project manager, I believe, implemented, Madam Speaker, so that they changed the design to save money, remove drainage, and then mash up the whole road.
Wow.
Mash up the whole road.
Design was the problem, not construction.
So, and I want to make the point, I'm not here to attack a contractor or any group of contractors or anything. They build according to what they are given, a design. And this is a design flaw that they promoted, instigated, initiated. Why did you change the design when we left? The designs were clear. Madam Speaker, it is in the report. So this failure was caused by that. Madam Speaker, hear what they say in this report. After OS was terminated, NIDCO executed a design consultancy contract in the interest of completing the project, Madam Speaker. And the design was changed. It was changed to complete the project. ACOM issued a stamped call for construction drawings to the contractor that were different from the drawings based on the original designs, where both carriageways were treated identically. The drawings contained the revisions and the removal of wick drains. That is what they did after, because they wanted to show that the cost was too much under the partnership. They wanted to show. You know, it's the net result of this, Madam Speaker. I have now in my hand, not to display, I have in my hand a note for cabinet that is currently before the Finance and General Purposes Committee of this cabinet. Who's the chairman there? Oh. The chairman is no, it has to be the Minister of Finance. He's generally the chairman of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Unless they change that too? Oh my, Madam Speaker, shockingly I'm told that this is the first cabinet where the Minister of Finance is not the chairman of the Finance Committee. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into that. They can, Madam Speaker, they can put any member, they can put the member for Toko Sandigrandi as chairman of the FNGP. I think he will do a better job. Madam Speaker, the matter for consideration of cabinet is the approval of a revised construction budget for package A. They go to cabinet, it's before the cabinet now, well, a subcommittee of cabinet. It is before them now. So maybe I can help them as I read, because they are considering the matter. And this project from NIDCO, of course, they would like an increase from $333 million to $398 million, an increase of $64.29 million to fix the mosquito crack.
64 million to fix that crack?
To fix the crack. $64 million. Madam Speaker.
Wow.
No, this deserves another set.
Rehydrate.
Madam Speaker, I have to rehydrate to this one. So they come for $65 million, more or less, for the removal of drains because of a design flaw. When they came into office, they changed it. Madam Speaker, here the nice part, all the money on this project so far, $333 million, 333.35, spent out. There's not 1 cent of the budget for that package left. All gone. And we now must add, Madam Speaker, $65 million for drain, embankment, seawall, pile installation. That's what we're going to add it for. And here this one, Madam Speaker, in closing this sordid affair for me here. The revised cost does not include the cost of installation of final surface. So the cost of paving is yet to come. That's a further $10 million or so. Right. So that's a further amount of money that will come to the $65 million. They stand accused of the highest level of mismanagement and incompetence we have seen. Madam Speaker, I say with pride, we built roads, no road collapse. They built a bridge the other day, where is it? Perseverance in central Trinidad. After 1 week, the bridge collapsed. I think today some trucks must do limbo to pass through there.
Yeah, the vehicles.
The vehicles. Madam Speaker, at Claxton Bay right now, there's something called an iron wall. It's just iron in the middle of the road. We thought it was an advertising board. They tried to fix a little landslip that was for $1 million. Do you know this is now being tendered? The work is now being tendered out for $27 million. Wow. From $1 million. The Bridal Bridge Road is somewhere there. Collapse. Madam Speaker, here this one, it touches all of us, anybody, because you move in this country all over. There's an extension to the highway between Chase Village and Shoguanas. It causes hours of traffic day and night. Inconvenience. It is a hazard because you have sticks and things poking out the ground with a little lighting. So it's a hazard. Do you know, Madam Speaker, that project crisis now is that they allowed works to take place and they used inferior materials. They used materials that were not suitable for the foundation work on the extension. And now they must go back and dig up the material, get a new contractor now to fix the road, with a further delay of what could be 2 to 3 months. You look at that project, you look at the Claxton break. You know, you look there, the mosquito crack. Yeah. Which highway we built that collapsed under the partnership? None. Which house? Madam Speaker, I have in my possession as well. Well, this is the cabinet business here. Madam Speaker, we spoke about Trestrail. Madam Speaker, we spoke about Trestrail. They are now tendering for the demolition of 100 housing units at Trestrail. Last year budget, I brought the report as well to tell you that that project, you remember that speech? Pumping in the sun? They said, no, don't worry, we didn't spend a cent there. Then later they said, well, we'll offset with monies we owe to the contractor. Madam Speaker, do you know HDC applicants have paid money on those units? 100 units to be demolished. No performance bond by the contractors. I want to know how you getting the contractor to do anything there. Because you have no... It was a project of HDC, Madam Speaker, where for the first time in history, another curious first, no performance bond was offered by a contractor for a $100 million project. So you have nothing to go and take and snatch. But they make a big deal out of the OAS, you know, that we changed the law and we allowed OAS to get away with the performance bond. They had none at Trestrail. And to this day, they cannot report that as any matter of any offense under the law, of any wrongdoing, of not even a breach of your public duty. Because if it was a breach, I imagine somebody is responsible as misbehavior in public office, so to speak. Nothing. Trestrail stands there, Madam Speaker, ready to be demolished. All the homes we built, Madam Speaker, not one fall down, not one land move, Madam Speaker, under the partnership. So, Madam Speaker, their record on construction is notorious. Madam Speaker, and just to repeat some of the budget matters, they speak about the construction of Labre Dry Dock. You know how much is budgeted in the estimates of the development program at page 219? $1 million. What you developing a dry dock for $1 million? There's a dry close. Madam Speaker, they speak about the South Manzanilla Shoreline Stabilization Park, $15 million. That is a fraction of the cost. Madam Speaker, oh, this one is nice. Development of a marina facility in Tobago. Proud, beat the chest about that, a marina. Tobago is the only place in the Caribbean, I think, where if you come in with a yacht, you have to get somebody to swim out with a keg of fuel and meet you in the sea. I think people just do that there. That's the only place. Here, how much they budget for this one? $1 million to build a marina facility in Tobago. What is that for, Madam Speaker?
Yeah, member, you have 2 more minutes left of your original time. Of course, you know you're entitled to 10 more minutes to wrap
Thank you.
up.
Thank you very
proceed.
much. Madam Speaker, dredging sea lots, though, where a favored contractor is involved, $14.4 million for that, but nothing for the marina. Madam Speaker, in construction again, I want to ask the ministry and the government, what about the secondary roads rehabilitation company? Started with fanfare, just like the Point-a-Pierre refinery and Patriotic Energies. They banged the table. The member for Diego Martin Northeast banged the table when he spoke about the secondary roads rehabilitation company, CIRIC. And when, you know, that was in one of his forward budgets. And Madam Speaker, he announced with fanfare. Today, they went secretly, we had to expose them. They went secretly and shut down the company when they heard of the bubble. They went secretly, Madam Speaker, they shut down the company.
Allocated $200 million.
$200 million gone. We don't know where it gone. Madam Speaker,
200.
NIPDEC, who's the chairman of NIPDEC? Anybody knows? There's a chairman there. We'll get the person in a while. Madam Speaker, the Valsain Avenue Bridge reconstruction and associated works. Do you know the Office of Procurement Regulation had to seize that project in light of an application before that body, what's called challenge proceedings?
Under the regulations.
under the regulations, that project came to a halt, a bridge. And the allegations there, Madam Speaker, are issues involving, well, bubble, to use local language, but it's alleged, Madam Speaker, incompetence, unlawful assessment, Madam Speaker, a lack of fairness, procedural fairness, and so on, in the award of a contract for a bridge, the Valsin Avenue Bridge. So, Madam Speaker, this government, this is their track record on construction. No wonder we have so much problems in this country as it relates, Madam Speaker, to fixing things. You know, the other day I went to that area where we were some years ago, the waterfront complex there, doing some business. And at Tower D, Madam Speaker, I am told by employees there an elevator is not working for 3 years. And they cannot fix an elevator at Tower D for 3 years. And we expect highway and bridge and roadway. We expect that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the minister, I just want to touch on one or two matters quickly. The minister spoke, of course, he's beaten his chest. Having read from 400 pages, he's moving to a paperless system. You were jumping there like a puppet of some kind. Madam Speaker, the member is deliberately troubling me.
It's always very comforting to see, a little camaraderie going on. But I think the conversation going on between the Minister of Finance and the member for Oropouche East, I think we could address that now and continue with the conversation in the right direction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for the record, he's not my comrade. So there's no camaraderie. Madam Speaker, I spoke about this matter, a cashless economy. The minister was also, highlighting, I won't say anything more dramatic than highlighting the importance of a cashless economy. I just want to tell the population that the promotion of a cashless economy leads to a lot of people making cash. All those organizations, institutions, international financial entities, local and foreign as well, that promote this cashless economy, they make a lot of cash. You look at the record of revenue and profits of Visa, of MasterCard, of the banks, they will wish you buy it doubles using a plastic card. Because they get the money out of that.
Service charges.
They get service charges, fees, monies from that. And therefore we support the Leader of the Opposition proposition, recommendation of a hybrid between a cashless economy and money transactions, Madam Speaker. We submit that. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister also made a point elsewhere. When he spoke about the government, he said the opposition has not made any motion of no confidence in the government, but we're talking all over the place and attacking the government and so on. Madam Speaker, we have brought motions against the Attorney General, against the Minister of Energy, against the Minister of everything. We have brought those motions. When the member for Diego Martin West brought a motion of no confidence in a former government, he came with email gate. That was his idea of a motion of no confidence, email gate.
That was fake.
Yeah, it was fake. That was what you call real fake, not the wire transfer that they ought not to even have their hands on, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I've heard other commentaries from members opposite, and some were, polite and others were not. And I don't really care to introduce myself to those members. Madam Speaker, but to indicate, Madam Speaker, that in the housing sector we have questions to ask. You see, Madam Speaker, I've raised the matter of Treasury. I don't want to continue with that. I've raised the matter of the eviction of citizens. Imagine citizens who obtained their homes years ago when they had a job, when they had an income. Today the HDC is kicking them out, and the member for Laventel East Mova, wherever he is on the compound, he's not here. I want him to take note, because he came across with like someone with enormous compassion and care. He was talking about free Wi-Fi in Port of Spain Shopping Center and so on. The member for Laventel East Mova ought to know that when persons are without jobs, they have lost their job, they have lost their income, you cannot evict them from an HDC house like that. I stand for the protection of HDC tenants, occupiers. that they ought not to be evicted. You must work out some type of payment plan so they can keep their units until the economy gets better under an incoming government of the United National Congress. You see, Madam Speaker, their approach to economic development is tax and sell out what we could sell out. Madam Speaker, that is the approach, you know. You look in the cabinet, and if you see gold, silver, diamond, anything, you sell everything because you want money. You have to raise tax to get money, and you have to sell the jewelry. That is the approach. So you sell Magdalena, sell this hotel, sell Clico, sell this to raise money. That is the approach of the government. You know what they're doing now? Shockingly. Housing units of an upscale variety was built years ago, I believe, under the Chambers regime, George Michael Chambers, at Federation Park, Port of Spain, an upscale neighborhood. Madam Speaker, we are told that the HDC are now involved in some type of surreptitious, underhand method of selling out at a reduced price Federation Park units for much less than its market value in a process that nobody knows. They are not going for a public auction or a public bid. They are not going for a lottery draw, because we are dealing with some big figures here. You can invite members of the public who are interested to put in a bid and decide on a market value, and you go for a public draw and say, look, whoever we draw. Because but they are favoring persons, including managers at the HDC, including a former government minister, I think the minister about 90 years old by now, going now to take a mortgage to get a Federation Park unit. We asked the HDC and the Ministry of Housing to come clear on the process being used to sell out Federation Park housing units at this time. And the recipients, Madam Speaker, the recipients of those units, prime property, because I know what will happen, Madam Speaker. They will buy it for $3 million and in quick time resell that at $7 million. That is the approach. And they will favor who they want to favor. Madam Speaker, that is the approach to governing the country. And I want to indicate on the next occasion when I speak, I will have in my hands a full list of those persons who they are selling the Fed Park units to. I will have that in my hand.
To give it to the OPR also.
And I will be sharing that, Madam Speaker, with the OPR and other interested parties. Madam Speaker, I come now in the closing few minutes, Madam Speaker, to address a matter of national security, although, Madam Speaker, let me say that the member for Barataria, and I think there's great anticipation for his presentation. And probably greater anticipation for the member of Couva North, who will also speak on works and transport in the coming hours of this debate. So I do not want to delve too much into that because they are very capable of bringing the details of some of those projects and the hypocrisy of this government. Madam Speaker, in my closing couple of minutes, as is the norm, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the great people of the fortress of Oropouche, the UNC fortress. Madam Speaker, it is a place in Trinidad, we say, where eagles dare. It is the only constituency where the PNM could not field a candidate in the history of electoral politics. They could not field a candidate there. And it explains itself. The local government election 2014-13 thereabout, Madam Speaker. I won't suggest my role, but it was difficult and the PNM did not have a candidate, Madam Speaker. Because it is where eagles dare. You don't dare in a place like that. I want to congratulate and thank the people of Oropouche for their commitment, their love, their dedication to my office and to myself. I want to thank our staff, activists, supporters, Charmaine Lewis and others for their human service to the constituents, our chairman, Mr. Raymond Surjbali, and others, Madam Speaker, for their contributions over the years. And thank the people of Oropouche East that has given me so much strength and tenacity and courage that I can stand and continue this work that I've started. Madam Speaker, unlike other members on this side when they speak, I believe my journey has not yet ended. And Madam Speaker, this is not my swan song. It is only to say that I may continue my journey towards representation and service to the people of Oropouche East and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I thank you so much.